the Australian Association of Bush Regenerators 2024 National Forum was hosted by our Victorian branch. Exploring the R's of ecological restoration, restoring biodiversity through resilience, regeneration, reintroduction, and reconnecting to country.
Our next presenter, Danny Pettingill, is from Firetail Environments. Danny is the Director of Firetail Environments, specialising in environment and sustainable agriculture and carbon projects, and drone workflow and deployment services. Firetail works in the niche between agriculture and conservation to promote management for biodiversity and production through sustainable environmental management techniques. Danny's passion is in collaboration and design, having made a career as a designer, artist, engineer, and educator at the forefront of innovative practice. And he brings this energy into landscape development, restoration, and sustainable farming projects. He is the former manager, operations and projects with Loddon Plains Landcare Network, has recently finished his term as a Director of Landcare Victoria, and currently sits on the City of Greater Bendigo's Farming and Agri-Business Advisory Committee. In 2020, Danny was a top 12 finalist for the National Landcare Australia Bob Hawke Award for his efforts and actions in promoting sustainable agriculture in Victoria, and is a former recipient of the DECA Our Catchment, Our Communities Leader in Innovation Award, undertaking research in advancing techniques in landscape function, catchment health, and decision-making in land management and project designs. Please join me in welcoming Danny.
Thanks, Alex. Gee, that guy's got tickets on himself. That's a 20-minute presentation in itself, isn't it? Thanks, folks. Thanks for having me. I'm here, to have a chat about utilising drones in weed surveillance, management and treatment. First, always, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we live and work. For me, that's the Jara people of Central Victoria. I acknowledge and admire the rich living cultures, traditions and connections of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people, their intrinsic connection to land and place, and the significant contribution that traditional owners have made to managing and caring for country for thousands of years. I extend that respect to elders and leaders past, present and emerging for the contributions that they've made, those that they will continue to make, and I support them in their aspirations, leadership moving forward. I always need to read that because I need to make sure I get that one right. Cool, so let me take you back to this morning, to Mandy and that place that she set for us, that riverbank under a tree, beautiful and serene, and then you hear the buzz that can only be associated with something that is about to break your privacy and break you out of that happy place. Who knows that kind of drone? Yeah, totally. Let's get rid of those. I'm not here to talk about those ones. Apart from that, these things we need to remember these things are another tool in the toolbox that are starting to gain quite a lot of traction in the industry. But we need to also be aware and acknowledge that it's actually not the drone that's doing the work for us. It's the people behind it, it's the skill base behind it, and the acquisition of that experience. So what can they do? Everyone knows them as, standard video photo point. Yeah, we've spoken a lot about regeneration and projects and delivering projects. Really great for photo points. Who's done a project? Everything's in the ground, guards are up. Put your stake in the ground. Take your photo. Great, report on it. 3 years later, you come back, and you've got 2 shrubs in the photo. Yeah, anyone? Me a lot. Yeah, thank you. So a little bit of height for photo points and repeatability is kind of, bottom end of what we can do with drones. We're not really going to talk about that too much, but what we are going to talk about are the possibilities around what we call photogrammetry, so map making and data acquisition for surveys. So acquiring data to create GIS embedded survey layers that we can then work from. If we step up a little bit, we've got multispectral mapping and data acquisition. So that's kind of stepping up the game a little bit more and utilising plant formulas to start to look at what's actually happening in the landscape. We're not going to touch on it too much, but LiDAR is another form in the industry that is starting to become more accessible and more common. And when we talk about that, we're talking about the possibilities around looking at surface water, putting numbers around erosion and looking at erosion control. Also looking at really detailed three-dimensional canopy data. So getting area, getting volume, getting biomass, things like that. The other thing that we'll get through, I haven't put my timer on, so I'm going to rely on you, Alex. Excellent, is on-ground treatment. So precision spraying and spreading treatments and being able to deploy those methods through acquiring that GIS data on a really precise level and then being able to deploy aerial treatments within that. So let's start. Let's start with decision making. Anyone been to Mount Bunyal? No? Between Charlton and Wedderburn. Oh, Barry. G'day, Barry. Yeah. It's like a post-apocalypse nightmare for any regenerator. Okay, so this is a project that we were able to implement drone technology on. We were able to collect high resolution mapping, so a really powerful tool to start to analyse and assess in decision making around this. Okay, we're gonna look at this a fair bit as we move through, but let me just set it for you a little bit. This is about 750 hectares. Does anyone know wheel cactus? Anyone worked with wheel cactus? Yeah, 750 hectares of wheel cactus on this mountain. The other thing that this can provide in deploying this tech, we can get GIS analysis of large weed infestations, which provide a starting point for deployment. Yeah, who's had that project where you know it needs a bit of money, it's completely full. It might be blackberry, it might be gorse, it might be something else. You finally get the money, and you walk in, and it is so big, you're paralysed. You don't know where to start. Anyone? That's this. Yeah. So we can, by creating some of this, or utilising these tools and creating some of these analysis kind of workflows, we can start to get a more accurate picture of the resources that we might need, the deployment that we might be able to utilise to combat a wicked problem like this, and give us more accurate planning and budgeting. And we'll go into that a little bit deeper later. We can also provide some deeper analysis of a problem where we can assess density, we can assess area, plant counts, and then priority areas. Here we go. So we've just had a look at photogrammetry. Now we're into this multispectral, so we're up a layer. Now, same map, same photograph. 750 hectares of wheel cactus. Every one of those little yellow spots, and I'm hoping you can see them, is the presence of wheel cactus across this area. So what we can do is, this is a plant reflectance map that we've been able to work with and manipulate. What we've been able to do is find or identify a reflectance bracket that identifies, in this case, Opuntia robusta, so our target that we're looking at. We've also been able to, in this one, find secondary species, so pretty heavy areas of Patterson's curse, and they're the more blanketed. I don't know what this is going to do. Yes. The more blanketed areas here. So they were Patterson's curse that the land managers were able to jump on reasonably quickly. And just to give you a bit more of an idea, so this little square here is about 1 hectare, give or take. That's the density that we're talking about as far as wheel cactus goes in that hectare square. So what does it do for us though? Like, great, awesome, we've got this data, right? But at the end of the day, the data is only as good as what we put in front of it or how we utilise it. So what we were able to do here is create what we call a density mosaic. And that was developed through the data that we were able to acquire, with red being a high infestation, orange being a moderate, and yellow being low. In here, no such thing as green. So from there, that was able to then inform or formed the basis of a management plan for the site that was able to then have a look at deployment methods, modes of control, and allow the land managers to then undertake this on a long-term basis. So here we're talking 25 years or more probably. So it provides a decision-making matrix around that. The other sort of data that's not included here that you can start to look at, particularly around three-dimensional modelling, are things like cultural heritage on the site. So Buckra has quite a lot of significant value to the traditional owners. So creating high-resolution maps like this allow those traditional owners to actually go through and have a look at the detail of these maps without necessarily needing to try and get into the inaccessible areas. We're also able to do a whole lot of risk profiling around the terrain, around what it looks like, around what sort of access you can get in and get out, and what how it might impact the site in terms of control methods. Okay, take a breath. We're going to move on now into surveillance. So that was around decision making. This is more long-term view with on-ground action. This is pale yellow water lily up at Gumbower, and this has been a long-term kind of ongoing trial across 5 sites. And what we've been able to do here is again employ the our mapping capability out of these drones. And do pre- and post-treatment surveys year on year. So the contractors go through and treat this between December and February every year. We go in 2 weeks before that and take maps of these areas. And then we go in after the treatment has been applied, about 5 to 6 weeks afterwards, so that we can see some differences. And then we're able to create or get some kind of analytical data around this. So what does this do? Really, again, data. How are we using this? We can then what we can do is start to dive into this a little bit more, so we can calculate surface area in square metres. So what sort of impact and what sort of efficiency is this treatment having? We can do a percentage of surface cover across the acquired area. Are we making progress? Are we maintaining? Or do we need to think a little bit differently about it? And we can look for clear signs of reduction or increase in biomass. So that's pre and post treatments, but it's also year on year. So now we're into year 4 of this trial. And this is what it starts to look like. So high resolution maps, detailed GIS analysis, we're then able to break that down from the acquired data through each survey, and then create a management report that's generated with change over years and over treatment schedules. Again, around decision making, but how you might treat these and what you need to do a little bit differently in order to get this, get this workflow a little bit more efficient. The culmination of that are data-driven recommendations for ongoing treatment. So already through this particular example, you can see down here, this is just an example of some of the data that's starting to come out. So on the left-hand side, that's pretty bleak. That's not being controlled at all because of access. I must also say it's not really, there's not much water surface left for pale yellow water lily to continue to grow in there. But we've also got some sites that are maintaining. It's really clear at those sites that the spray volume that's getting to that particular area isn't enough to start to push it back to the bank. So we've got to rethink that kind of treatment schedule around those particular areas. But then we can also see some tangible wins as well. So over time, we're starting to see these areas decrease. So moving on from that, we can then start to make clearer decisions around how we manage this problem. So putting that together, we've got here, again, moving into multispectral and a bit of mapping. This is a proof of concept area. And this is more around identifying and looking at surveillance of particular weeds or particular targets. And I must say, that if you can do it for something like this, you can actually, it's starting to have a real impact around native grasslands and native species as well, so we can start to pick those out. The workflow is the same. So 4 hectare proof of concept area for serrated tussock, with the intention to scale that across a 200 hectare grassland. We're able to collect the high-res images again, and the data acquired. That's all through a precision workflow. So you can see here there's some little pink circles. So we take a control area. We also utilise precision positioning, so inside or more or less survey grade positioning, so that we can absolutely know where these things are in the landscape. We can then, and we utilise a little calibration target as well. So that builds in our repeatability in our data. So that works on reflectance, which means we know that our reflectance data is the same over time. We create the maps and then we're able to identify the reflectance value of this particular species that we're looking at, serrated tussock in this case, and then create outputs for management. And that's what it looks like. So again, we're looking at the same map, just treated slightly differently. So same data, let's say. So what we do here, we've established this control area, created our reflectance bracket, so our values utilising NDVI, NDRE or OSAVI. Anyone familiar with plant reflectance? Any farmers out there that use? Yep. We then can apply that formula right across the area, whether that's 2 hectares, whether it's 20 hectares, whether it's 200, whether it's 2,000. And then establish that across the map. That then turns into something like this. So we can reduce the noise in the map and we can really start to target, oh no. We can really start to target these areas, tune the map to what we're looking for, index it for visual clarity, if you like, and then create a density mosaic with area in order to then, again, look at deployment maps. So this is being used as a bit of a deployment map for a ground crew to go out. I'm sure there's a lot of project managers out there. You've got X amount of budget to spend on a particular area. You want to get your bang for buck. In this case, the kind of mode of identification is jumping on a side-by-side or in a ute or a quad bike and going looking for it or looking for the most affected areas. What we can do here is we can identify those most affected areas and then send contractors or teams out to hit those areas depending on the workflow that you want to pursue in terms of the on-ground management. So whether you're containing it, whether you're maintaining it, or whether you're looking at priority areas in the landscape. Moving forward, then we're able to move all of this stuff into deployment. So deploying aerial treatments to particular areas that might not be accessible for conventional or on-ground methods. So we've got an area here. This is in Malmesbury. This is Blackberry. It's around your patch, Brian, wherever you are. Yep. This is a really tricky spot. So really steep slope. You've got Colaburn River. Let's start on the north. So private land in the north and in the east. This is the Colaburn River that runs through it. So pretty hard to get across there with anything, on ground. And then you've got a water storage on the western side. So it's pretty locked up. This has been a challenge for this particular project officer for a long time. And now we've been able to kind of do something about it. So high resolution map, again, always starts with the data and the acquisition. What we're then able to do is create treatment maps. So these purple areas are the areas of blackberry and gorse, in this case, that need to be targeted. This is about 5 hectares, just to give people an idea of scale. From there, we can deploy an aerial drone to be able to spray it, within this area. And generate these 3-dimensional kind of treatment plans, I suppose, to be able to see where it's going and also build in the accuracy that we're after. On the back end of that, the other ability for us here and the benefits, we can put numbers around these treatment areas. So we could be a bit more accurate with what we're doing, what we're treating and how much area we're treating, and then how we're doing it. It also allows us accurate calculations of materials, herbicide volumes, and spray amounts. So what you need to mix up, what you need to account for in that regard. And we get three-dimensional rendering, so we know where we're deploying this technology, and we can use it, the back end, the user, to be able to kind of maintain the integrity of the project. Afterwards, we then get accurate GIS treatment maps for documentation, so you know absolutely where you've been. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but feel free to get your cameras out, or it'll be recorded. But this is a bit of an idea of what is possible, or what the outputs we're looking at around any kind of workflow. So why? Why are we doing it? Thank you. Bang on time, I reckon, hopefully. So developing appropriate workflows, and that's the big thing, appropriate workflows for the solution that you're looking for. So you've always got to, we're always identifying the outcome or the solution first, and then you've got to engineer it back from that. So by identifying those workflows, we can provide significant value in weed management and restoration, but also in decision making. So again, a tool for the toolbox, yeah? We've now got proven methods and workflows across multiple species to assist in classification and detection and surveillance. So serrated tussock, pale yellow water lily, wheel cactus, we're working on gamba grass, buffel grass, a range of different things now. And the workflow is happening, look quite accurate in that we're seeing what we need to see. We're also moving that across like ecological burns now, things like kangaroo grass and native grasses. It provides us efficient deployment of resources that provide effective treatment outcomes. And used together with aerial mapping and application methods, we can allow for more effective and more efficient treatment of really big, inaccessible areas. Yeah, people that have done a summer of spraying out there, I'm going to admit it, there is a point with really big infestations that the gun goes up in the air and you just hope, yeah? Not the best way to do it. We can combat that now. Yeah, you can get over the top of these sorts of infestations and you can get onto them really quickly. And then at the end of that, kind of treatment deployment, it also allows an opportunity for immediate remediation actions. So whether that is straight afterwards, so this is Tex, our spraying and spreading drone, we can whip the tank out of Tex immediately once we're done, put a hopper in it, and then fill it with native seed and go and start to create that seed bank again. So it gives us the ability to do that really fast. With the Malmesbury job, we're actually going to do that next season, so we want to see some drop off first. Clear. So thanks for your time, thanks for having me. Hopefully I've given you a bit of provocation around what these things can do and the possibilities around drone stuff.
Massive thanks to our forum sponsors: City of Yarra, DNA Training, Arbour Green, Merry Creek Management Committee, Ecological Consultants Association Victoria, Stantec Australia, Global Green Environmental, NRM Jobs, and Nature Links. Arbour promotes the study and practice of ecological restoration and fosters and encourages effective management of Australia's natural areas by qualified people based on sound ecological principles. Join us to help promote good work practices, to strengthen our industry and network with like-minded people. Thanks for visiting Regen TV. Call by again soon for more restoration content you can trust.